There is a town in Australia where 50% of the residents have never slept in a room with a window, not because they are poor, not because they are prisoners, because they chose this, deliberately, permanently, and there is a waiting list to join them. But that is number one. Some of these towns are thriving right now. Some were erased by governments. One was shut down by force in 2019 and its residents had nowhere to go. And one contains a church, a mosque, a hotel, a bar, and a man who spent 40 years carving his home from solid rock and filled every wall with women's underwear. These are 7 underground towns in Australia that most people have never heard of, ranked from fascinating to the one that will make you question everything you think home means. Stay for number 1. I promise it earns it. Number 7. Farina, South Australia. The name means flour in Latin. They genuinely believed wheat could grow in a place that receives 150 millimeters of rain per year. It never did. Not once. Not a single harvest in the entire history of this town, 540 kilometers north of Adelaide. But when temperatures regularly exceeded 45 degrees, the settlers did not leave. They dug down. An underground bakery was carved directly into the earth below street level. The oven is 140 years old, and right now, if it is between May and July, it is running. A man named Tom Harding formed the Farina Restoration Group in 2008. Every year, volunteers travel up to 600 kilometers to restore this abandoned town. The restoration project has attracted hundreds of participants who donate their time to rebuild the community brick by brick. Professional and amateur bakers spend weeks underground every season, making fresh bread, pies, and pasties in that 140-year-old oven in the middle of the outback. The railway relocated in 1980. The last permanent residents left. The tracks were pulled up in 1993. But the underground bakery kept the memory alive better than any surface structure could. Walk to the cemetery and you will find an Afghan corner. Headstones with English and Arabic inscriptions, all oriented toward Mecca. The Afghan cameleers who carried supplies across impossible terrain are buried here. They built half these outback towns. They are largely absent from official Australian history. The town original residents fled is now restored annually by people who drive 600 kilometres to get there. The underground outlasted everything built on the surface. Number 6. Nundle, New South Wales. Most people have never heard of Nundle. That is not an accident. In the 1850s, gold rush, Chinese miners arrived 290 kilometres north of Sydney and immediately encountered what the law at the time made legal. Racial violence, discriminatory taxes, systematic exclusion from the richest alluvial claims on the surface. So they disappeared underground. They developed horizontal alluvial tunnels driven into hillsides, following buried gold-bearing gravel seams that lay beneath the creek beds. While European miners worked the surface in daylight, Chinese miners followed ancient geology to gold that nobody else could reach. Here is what stays with me. The tunnels required an intimate understanding of how the land had formed millions of years before. Which layers held gold? Which were barren? This knowledge was not in any European mining manual. It came from experience, observation, and a community sharing information underground while being excluded from everything above. Many of these tunnels still exist, sealed now. Some collapsed. Some were deliberately filled during periods when the mere existence of Chinese underground activity was treated as suspicious by local authorities. For over a century, this community disappeared from Nundle's official history. The annual Nundle Go for Gold Festival celebrates the gold rush. The specific story of Chinese miners who literally went underground to survive has in recent years become a more prominent part of the town's historical narrative, as the community has worked to recover these excluded stories. The gold they extracted built no monuments with their names on them. The tunnels they dug are sealed or collapsed. And the town of 260 people that exists today sits above a network of hand-dug passages that most residents have never thought about. They were excluded from the surface, so they went underground, and then they were excluded from the history of what they built down there too. Number 5. Mintabie, South Australia. This one ended recently, and it ended badly. Mintabie sat 1,050 kilometres north of Adelaide on Anangu Pitjantjatjara, Yankunitjatjara lands. Dugout homes carved into hillsides. Underground workshops. At its peak, 400 miners and families producing some of the finest white and crystal opals ever found. Miners expanded their dugouts over years, adding rooms, carving out kitchens and living areas, building underground lives as intricate as anything above ground. The mining leases on APY lands had always been contentious. The Anangu people raised concerns for decades about alcohol, about impact on their communities, about the terms under which their land was being used. In 2019, the South Australian government declined to renew the mining leases. Miners and families who had built lives there, some for over 30 years, were told to leave. Underground homes they had spent decades expanding could not be taken with them. They left behind carved rooms, built infrastructure, entire underground architectures of daily life. Some miners were angry, some understood. The Anangu people had been asking for this resolution for a very long time. What remains now is a site on Indigenous land, not accessible to the general public. The dugouts are still there. The underground rooms are still carved into the hillside. They are just empty. Former residents have described the difficult experience of leaving a place where the temperature was always exactly the same. Underground, they said, you knew what to expect every single day. On the surface, everything is unpredictable. A community built underground over 30 years was dismantled in months. The rooms are still there. The people are gone. And the land is back in the hands of the people it always belonged to. Number 4. Andamooka, South Australia. If you search for Andamooka in most travel guides, you will not find it. There is a reason for that, and it is not because there is nothing to see. This is Australia's least visited inhabited opal town. Unlike Coober, Pedy, which has embraced tourism infrastructure, Andamooka has actively resisted it. No visitor centre, minimal signage. The community of approximately 100 permanent residents prefers it this way. The dugout homes here are some of the oldest continuously inhabited underground dwellings in Australia. Some were first carved in the 1930s during the initial opal rush. They have been expanded, modified, and passed between owners across generations. Some current residents live in dugouts their grandparents dug. What makes Andamooka distinct is what most outsiders never see. The town has a functioning underground social infrastructure, underground meeting spaces, an informal underground workshop network where miners share equipment and knowledge. A culture of underground living so embedded that some residents find surface housing conceptually foreign. Visitors to Andamooka have described entering dugout homes that extend deep into the hillside, multiple rooms carved over decades, a kitchen where the temperature holds at 19 degrees while it is 47 outside, a living room with rugs and furniture and paintings on rock walls, and at the very back, the original dig face still visible, where someone's grandfather had started with a pick. Queen Elizabeth II visited Andamooka in 1954 and was presented with an opal from the field. The stone was a valuable find. The miner who discovered it was acknowledged in the town's records, a town so committed to underground life that it has resisted the tourism that would change it. Some of its residents have never wanted to live any other way. Number 3. Lightning Ridge, New South Wales, the only place on Earth where black opals are found in significant quantities. That single fact has shaped everything about this town 770 kilometres northwest of Sydney, including what lies beneath it. The surface looks like the moon. Thousands of mullock heaps, white rocky mounds from individual mining operations, stretch across red plain in every direction. From above, it looks like a field of giant molehills. From ground level, it looks like the surface of somewhere that is not Earth. But underneath is where this gets strange. Unlike Coober, Pedy, where dugout homes dominate, Lightning Ridge developed something more specific. Individual miners carved underground workspaces directly connected to their claims, not just shafts going straight down, but horizontal chambers, underground galleries where opals could be examined in natural temperature conditions, underground workshops where cutting and polishing happened away from the brutal surface heat. Some of these spaces became something more than functional. Throughout the town's history, miners have created unusual underground spaces carved by hand. One documented example is an underground cathedral with hand-carved details, vaulted elements, and artistic embellishments. Local miners knew about these private carved spaces. Some have been abandoned for decades, while others remain partially maintained. The exact locations and histories of these underground artistic spaces are known only to people in the mining community who keep them largely private. The opal level at Lightning Ridge sits 15 to 30 metres below surface, a specific geological layer from the Cretaceous period, 110 million years ago, when an inland sea covered central Australia. The opals formed in the sediment of that vanished sea. When you mine at Lightning Ridge, you are standing on the floor of an ocean that no longer exists. Two miners can be working 3 metres apart underground, and that invisible line between their claims is legally absolute. Disputes are settled by a warden's court that has been operating since the 1800s, a legal system designed specifically for underground boundary conflicts. The town above ground is eccentric, the town below ground is genuinely strange, and somewhere underneath it are spaces that almost nobody outside the mining community knows how to find. Number 2. White Cliffs, New South Wales. White Cliffs is not a ghost town. It is not historical. It is happening right now. This is the only town on this list where you can book a room underground tonight, sleep inside solid rock, and wake up having no idea what time it is because there is no way to tell. Australia's first commercial opal field opened here in 1889, 1,000 kilometres west of Sydney. The surface transformed almost immediately into what it still looks like today. Thousands of white mullock heaps covering red earth as far as any direction you look. Summer surface temperatures regularly hit 48 degrees. There is no shade, almost no water, and several $1 million worth of opals in the ground. Miners started carving into the hillsides in the early days. Not for storage, to live. The physics are simple and astonishing. Underground, regardless of surface conditions, the temperature stabilizes at approximately 19 degrees year-round. It does not matter if it is 48 above or freezing at night. Underground, it is always 19. That single fact changed everything about how this community organized itself. The underground motel exists right now. You sleep in a room carved from white opalized rock. Your ceiling may contain opal seams. There are no windows, no way to judge time passing. Guests consistently report the deepest and most disorienting sleep of their lives. Some report waking convinced they slept for 12 hours when it has been 4. Some report the opposite. Long-term residents who have lived underground for decades consistently describe the appeal of permanent temperature stability. The predictability underground offers something the surface never can. No electricity bills, no heat stress, no temperature variation. Underground, everything remains constant. The Royal Flying Doctor Service conducted pioneering outback medical services in this region in the 1930s. The town has existed in genuine isolation for most of its history. The sealed road arrived late. Internet arrived later. What it has always had is the underground, and 150 people who decided that was enough. You can stay here tonight. Underground. In the dark. At 19 degrees. While it is 48 above you. The town has been making that offer since 1889. And some people never leave. Number 1. Coober, Pedy, South Australia. I told you at the start there was a town with a waiting list to move underground. This is it. Coober, Pedy produces approximately 70% of the world's opals. The name comes from Arabana words meaning white man's hole in the ground. It was named that by the people who were already living on this land when miners arrived in 1915. The Arabana had been here for tens of thousands of years. They watched the first miners arrive, start digging, and never really stop. The first dugout home was built in 1916. A miner noticed that the mine stayed at a constant cool temperature while the surface was attempting to kill him. He carved out a room next to his shaft, then another room. Within a decade, families were building complete underground homes with multiple rooms and arched ceilings carved directly from the rock. Now the underground of Coober, Pedy contains things that should not logically exist beneath a desert. A Serbian Orthodox church built in 1993 with an altar carved from living sandstone and icons embedded in the walls. A mosque, a catacomb-style underground bar where miners have been drinking since the 1960s. The Desert Cave Hotel with 50 rooms, a gallery, and a swimming pool, none of which have seen natural light in over 30 years. And then there is Crocodile Harry, a Latvian baron named Walter von Rosen, who arrived in Coober, Pedy and spent decades carving his underground home from solid rock. He expanded it continuously, adding rooms, corridors, chambers. He covered every surface with carvings and paintings, and collected bras and underwear left behind by female visitors, which he displayed as art throughout his home. The home became internationally known. Film crews visited. Tourists visited. He died in 2006. The home is still there underground. You can visit it. Here is the detail that puts everything in perspective. There is no planning permission required to dig a new room in Coober, Pedy. If you own the land above, you own the rock below it. You want another bedroom, you get a pick and you dig. The town has expanded underground continuously for over 100 years, based on individual decisions made by individual people with picks, and later with small excavation machines. Over 250,000 mine shafts and opal diggings surround the town. Many are unmarked. The ground around Coober, Pedy looks solid, and regularly is not. Several tourists have died falling into unmarked shafts after dark. You do not walk off marked paths at night. The underground in Coober, Pedy is not just where people live. It is also what will kill you if you are not paying attention. The Arabana people have never ceded the land that Coober, Pedy sits on. The opals extracted from their country over 100 years have generated fortunes. The formal recognition of their connection to this land has moved slowly and incompletely through Australian legal and political systems. And still the underground waiting list is real. People from Adelaide, from Melbourne, from overseas, who have visited and decided that a life at constant 19 degrees underground in the dark is preferable to whatever they were doing on the surface. Those who move to Coober Pedy often describe an initial visit that changed their perspective. Something about standing in a carved room in the dark, in perfect temperature stability, in absolute quiet, makes the world feel suddenly manageable. Within months, they find themselves signing papers to buy a dugout. They are still there. A church, a mosque, a hotel, a bar, an artist's underground chamber filled with memories, a waiting list, all underground, all chosen. The most extreme answer to an impossible climate that any Australian community has ever found. 7 towns, 7 decisions to go underground. Some made it because they had no choice. Some made it because the physics made it obvious. And some made it because they discovered that life at 19 degrees in the permanent dark was not a last resort. It was home.